You are listening to Something Rather Than Nothing. Creator and host, Ken Vellante. Editor and producer, Peter Bauer.
This is Ken Vellante with the Something Rather Than Nothing podcast. And for this episode, I have two guests, Paige Henderson and Nicole Murray, who are a team of creators. They've done a show that's on YouTube. It's a web series called Dead Friends. They're both writers, creators, and actresses. And Paige and Nicole, I got to tell you, I'm so excited to have you on the podcast. Wanted to welcome you to Something Rather Than Nothing.
So great to be here. Thanks.
Yeah, this is so exciting.
And this is the first episode we've had a couple guests, and just for the listeners, we're going to have a great table read from the show Dead Friends, so you get a little bit of a taste of maybe the creative process and how that happens. But before we get into that, I wanted to start with you, Paige, and then to you, Nicole. What were you each like as young children? Were you always have a kind of performative piece to your personality or an artistic a little thread?
Yeah, definitely. I grew up doing community theater, actually, in my hometown. So the first show I was in was Wizard of Oz when I was 4. So I always had that going on for me. I was also very stubborn as a kid. That was probably being in community theater and being stubborn were probably my defining characteristics at the time. Yeah, but I just always, I don't know, I'm the youngest of 4, so that really kind of shaped my identity with trying a lot of new things, just, trying to copy my siblings. But it was actually really great because they exposed me to really great music. Nobody was really quite as into film as I was. I'm not really quite sure why I so specifically geared myself towards that, because I was always interested. I always read a lot and everything as well, but film's always been a big love of mine. Yeah.
All right. And for me, I've always been a little performer from a young age. I recall making my parents sit down and watch plays I made, or I would write songs and sing songs. And I did plays all throughout school. And also, I was pretty lucky because my stepdad had this little recording studio in our house. And so as a family, we would make and sing songs. But I was really the only one who enjoyed that. None of my other siblings ever wanted to do it. I was the only one who was really enthusiastic. And we even made little music videos. So, I kind of had a nice, fun taste of that, performative art from a young age. And actually, I guess I was so theatrical that my family, when I told them I was moving to LA to pursue acting, no one was surprised. They were like, yeah, of course you would. So
it wasn't a huge commotion. It was like, I'm going to LA. They're like, well, we figured.
Yeah, exactly. I guess it's always been in my blood. I don't know.
Well, tell us, I know there's a bit about the story that I think I read on your website, Paige and Nicole, about your meeting and about how that kind of led into the web series Dead Friends. Can you tell a bit of that story of meeting and how that collaboration came about?
Yeah. Paige and I met on a film set. It's a short film in Seattle just a few months before each of us had already planned to move down to LA. And so then when we met and we're talking about it, we're like, hang on a second, you're moving to LA. I'm moving to LA. Why don't we do it together? It's kind of like, hey, I just met you. This is crazy, but move in with me now. Cool, thanks. So then we had a few little like meetups just to make sure the other wasn't a psychopath, and then moved on down together. And it's funny too, because we went to the same university and didn't even know about each other at all, except like through friends of friends. We kind of had a mutual friend.
And you established for each of you both, and not to put you on the spot, but you each established that you weren't psychopaths, right?
Well, jury's still out on that one. But
that seemed to be
I don't know anybody else in LA.
That seemed to be an open question. Okay, so you meet and you end up down there, and then you work on this project. So what was it like? You each have developed in your own way, as far as what you do or what you write and how you act. I mean, how did it just kind of connect, and do you feel kind of a vibrancy working together?
Yeah, so where this actually came from was we'd already been living together for about almost a year in LA. And we both kind of, the great thing right now about the film industry is it's very oversaturated, but we're so much more lucky than 30 years ago when you would have to rent out these huge cameras, and it was just really expensive to make a movie, and now everybody can make a film. So that's kind of, we started writing this web series just to give ourselves something to act in, something that we wanted. And as we kind of thought it was just going to be this little thing with our friend Ben Slavens, who's the DP on it, the director of photography. And we thought it was just going to be him and us in our apartment, just shooting something for the fun of it. But when we were writing it, we ended up vibing really well in the writing, and it was pretty cool. It really is like a very 50-50 experience for both of us. Like we were very much collaborating on all of the writing. And as we were writing it, we were like, wait, we actually love this. We fell in love with the characters and the story, and we just wanted to do it more justice than just the three of us in our apartment. So yeah, it was fun because it came out of, more of a necessity, and then it almost turned into a really great exploration of our writing abilities, creating this world, characters we wanted to play. So,
and it's funny because our original, when we thought it was just going to be us and Ben, we were like, okay, what are we going to do for the spirit world? Because we had always envisioned it to be the white void. And we were like, let's hang up white sheets in our tiny apartment, and that will be the spirit world. And thank goodness that was not what the spirit world was.
So just as far as just in the making of it, sounded like you were trying to use like what you can and what you had around, and obviously within the material itself, taking place in an apartment and roommates, did it really become part of what you were doing from day to day, or did you separate it out as like, okay, now we got to do our work, or did it just kind of appear a little bit more organically?
Yeah, that's actually part of how we were able to, I think we finished the first season in a month, like writing it, the whole thing from start to finish. And part of why we were able to do that is because we would make, even though we lived together and at the time it was just the two of us, we made sure to make, okay, on Saturday at 9 a.m., we're going to meet at Civil Coffee, this coffee shop up the road, and we're going to write for 2 hours. And we treated those meetings like if it was anybody else in the industry. So, we couldn't cancel them because we were tired, or reschedule it for, anything besides a huge reason. We really treated each other like business partners almost in that. And that was enabled us to just, write and not put it off, as often happens. I feel like, even with myself included, when you don't give yourself and your art the respect of committing to a time, sometimes it goes by the wayside. So that was really helpful.
So we're going to get into some of the other questions that is part of the podcast about, creativity in general and art in general. But as I mentioned, we wanted to do a scene from Dead Friends, and I was wondering if you could just do a quick little setup, and I'll help with the read, of course. But could you just set up the scene we're gonna go into for the listeners?
Sure. Yeah. So the scene we're about to go into is that Mel just came to move in with Keely, and Keely's her new roommate, who's a bit eccentric, you could say. So far, the scene prior to where we're going to start has consisted of Keely giving her a tour, which has basically consisted of crystals and very invasive questions. So, so that's kind of where we're at.
And it's the first episode, so this is just the beginning.
Okay, so it's the interior of an apartment, it's the kitchen, and it's daytime.
And here we have another crystal and this grass thing I'm trying to bring back to life. You seem like a Capricorn. That's it for the tour. Any questions?
Yeah, what's the Wi-Fi password? Is that human hair? Where's my room? Why does it smell like something's burning in here?
My cookies!
She opens the oven door and pulls out a tray of cookies.
I made these for you. Triple chocolate fudge.
I'm vegan.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I love animals too.
Awkward silence.
So, where's my room?
Oh, right. It's the one down the hall. I'll just toss these and help you unpack.
Keely hums as Mel grabs her suitcase and starts making her way down the hallway. Interior, Keely's apartment. Hallway, day. Mel's overwhelmed. She walks down the hallway, comes upon an open cabinet filled with candles, crystals, and the same photo of the man we saw on the apartment door. This is Chris. Mel just stares, completely weirded out. It's obviously a shrine to Chris. It's weird.
Ooh, that's Chris, my soulmate.
Chris, did he...
Keely nods sadly.
Keely, I'm so sorry. I know what it's like to lose someone you love.
Oh, yeah, I mean, we didn't talk much when he was alive, but we're meant to be. We're in love.
Excuse me?
We're in love. He communicates with me from the beyond.
From the beyond.
Yes, I feel him every night. He'll rustle my hair and make the lights dim. And when I wake up in the morning, he'll have left me little clues. Like this morning, my pen was 2 inches from where I had left it, and it was pointing to the letter L.
She looks at Mel, waiting for her reaction.
For love! Obviously, he's so cute like that. And I write him poems as often as I can.
Okay. Well, I'm just gonna go unpack, I guess. So I'll see you later.
Oh, of course. Let me know if you need any help.
Mel grabs her suitcase and heads to her room. Interior, apartment, Mel's room, day. Mel closes the door and leans against it, closing her eyes. She's finally alone. We hear Keely outside the door, humming. Mel opens her eyes and sees her room is covered in balloons. She reaches for the door handle as if to leave, but sees a present Keely left on her bedside table. She picks up the card attached. It says, "I hope you find what you're looking for here." Mel decides to try. She lays her suitcase on the floor and opens it. She suddenly pulls back her hand and looks at it, almost like her hand was just shocked. She lets the suitcase fall open as pop, Chris is standing there. Frantic, Mel jumps, startled.
Who are...
Yo, dude, you gotta help me. That crazy stalker is fucking up my afterlife. I can't move on until she stops calling my spirit or something. Just tell her to get over me. Tell her to go for someone who's, like living with like a body and a pulse. What do you say?
And so now, cut. Do I say cut at this point?
That works. It's a wrap.
Thank you. I'd love to set up for anybody who's interested in the show Dead Friends web series on YouTube, and the interaction between you both is so great, and I love that kind of initial over the top awkwardness of the meeting. And thank you so much for doing that scene. It's not. I know not being right next to each other when we're in three different spots doing it can be pretty difficult. But I wanted to ask each one of you. Part of this podcast is about the art and the creative act of what various creators do. So I've had poets, writers, comedians, musicians, painters. And I'm going to start with you, Nicole, and then go to Paige. Nicole, what is how would you describe the art of acting, of that craft? How do you get into it? How do you go from 1 second, just being yourself, Nicole, to your character? How does that happen?
Right. Yeah. Well, I think, it's the exploration of the human experience. And so a lot of how to get into a character really involves exploring another person's life. And kind of, if you're seeing a script and you're seeing on the page that this person has this occupation or whatever other detail about them, it's up to us as actors to really explore why they have that or what in their lives has led them to the point that they're at, and all of these things, so that we can kind of make this these choices that come up with this very unique and relatable and extraordinary character that we can then play. And another part of it is kind of this finding whatever you can use to trigger you to drop in and really be that person. And so that's kind of what that exploration is like finding those things that can help really ground you in this character. That way you do them justice.
Thank you for that explanation. And Paige?
Yeah, can you actually repeat the question?
Of course. It's
yeah.
basically about on the podcast we have get into the craft and the act of creation, right? So a singer and singing and poets, the performance of poetry and as an actor, as an actress, what transformation happens from a moment where you're there as Paige and then the next moment you're into this creation of another character? What's that art of acting? How's that happen?
Yeah, I think what Nicole said about the exploration of the human experience is something that the basis of all of the craft of acting is for me as well. Up until a couple years ago, when I was doing community theater and high school theater, I loved acting, but I was always acting. It was always something I was putting on top of Paige, almost like a layer of paint or something.
Sure.
If you have a flower that's black and white and you put yellow paint over it, but the actual flower itself is not yellow, and you can kind of tell, right, in those instances. And so it's become, in the past few years for me, it's really become, yes, about becoming a different person and believing it so much in your body, like even physically. And I'm not just talking about, posture or how they walk, which is a huge thing, because you don't walk like anybody else in the world. Your center of gravity and all of the aches and pains from, that soccer injury 10 years ago, they all change things. But even just the physicalization of like feeling it within your soul changes. So for me, that's what acting is about, is just getting to that point and really believing it so much yourself when you're in the moment, because if you can't believe it, nobody else is going to believe it. And so, I mean, just those moments of transformation for me specifically, there's all of the technique of acting and objective and tactics and all of this stuff you do before the moment, that people have varying opinions on. But for me, in the moment, a lot of that big stuff for me is actually that physicalization, whether that's if I'm in a scene with a scene partner and I'm not really feeling in it, like on set, a lot of times I'm always ask consent first, but I'll grab their hand and stare into their eyes and just really feel grounded in that moment. And that allows me to feel grounded in the reality of the scene. I also use music a lot. I'll find a song that really speaks to my character and in that moment in time. And I will just like play it on a loop over and over, or I always have headphones on set. So if I know this certain scene's coming up, I'll play that song and just really sink into the feeling of that, which is kind of fun. Another art form, informing the art of acting. So.
Absolutely. And I appreciate your description of that. I wouldn't have guessed that from the outside, but definitely understand in your description of what you're trying to do with that. Paige, just wanted to bring up another thing. A mutual friend of ours, we have Megan McGroarty, who is a director of a piece, Twin Parts, where there's a trailer for. Now, you acted in that as well, and in that particular short film. I think it's anticipated to be about 25 minutes based on a kind of fan film of Twin Peaks. What was that experience like for you? And were you a Twin Peaks fan prior to going into that?
Yes. Yes. I'm not nearly as much of a fan as Megan, because her knowledge of all David Lynch is amazing. I'm always very impressed. But no, I do love Twin Peaks. The R&R. Oh my gosh, that's the name of the diner, right?
Yes.
Okay, I know. Like I say, I'm a fan, and then I can't. But the R&R is actually when I skied in college and would, in North Bend, the diner. That's the R&R. Would pass that all the time, so that was kind of fun. But no, it was great. I love Megan. I think she's so creative. All of what I've seen from what we did is just, I don't even know how she makes the video art that she does make. I'm always very impressed. And her passion is just really inspiring, and she has very, very creative ideas. So that was really wonderful to work with her, and she's so supportive and so great.
Yeah, thanks for some of that background. Listeners know I'm a huge Twin Peaks fan myself, and it's nice to hear your perspective on that. Actually, yesterday I saw a picture outside the R&R Diner, and it was a location for some of the protests around racial justice. And it was interesting, because you have a bit of an iconic image there, but also a very the very current events, seen with Black Lives Matters and issues of racial justice. Had a couple like major things I think recently impact art and making art, but I want to focus in just for a second on that at present. In general, whether it's your own art or art that you enjoy, each of you enjoy as artists. What do you think the role of art is in challenging or disrupting, processes of injustice that we have around us? What are your thoughts on that?
I think art is incredibly important in, shining a light on. I think art in general is holding up a mirror to humanity and to reality, and it allows us to understand what's what we're experiencing, what's going on in the world. I think art is incredibly important. And I mean, first, representation in art is so important. And, you know, Hollywood especially, I mean, not just Hollywood, but indie films as well. But Hollywood is so just everywhere. It just permeates our life. So the stories that are chosen to be told have a huge impact on what our country and what our world is thinking about at the moment, and the struggles that we're understanding and learning about. And so I think it's the responsibility of artists to not turn your back on what's happening in the world, or, you know, from racial injustice to everything. I think it's really our duty as artists to bring that to the forefront and to tell these stories that have been pushed under the rug for so long. I mean, without getting too, you know, crazy into too political of a discussion, I mean, just our history books, even the history we learn in school in this country from being a child is very much one-sided and very much pushes all of these stories under the rug that are so important to understanding where we are and how we should be better and how we can change. And so I really think that's now more than ever up to us as artists to continue to shine light on those stories, to hopefully make people have, you know, question themselves, question what's happening, question our reality, make people have those hard conversations with themselves. Yeah, I think art is incredibly important.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh,
go ahead.
Yeah, no, I all of that. Well said, Paige. But adding on to that too, yeah, I think art it provides a really nice avenue for bridges to be gapped in order to provide more of like an informational platform for a lot of people. I think art opens doors and minds, and I think it educates people about an experience from a different level, you know? It's more than just reading something on the page and then trying to like put that into words in your mind. It's like evoking a feeling and an understanding that I just really think does a great job of like connecting people and bringing them together and helping people share their experiences, which again is why representation is so important in art, representation from all diverse backgrounds, because we all need to do a better job of understanding each other and trying to open our minds. And I just think art does a beautiful job of that because it goes beyond the surface always.
Yeah, I really appreciate your answers to this. I wanted to tell you, I mean, just on the acting component, one of the most amazing, probably the most amazing interview about a particular actor and a director was with Spike Lee and Denzel Washington when he was playing Malcolm X in the movie Malcolm X. And Spike Lee described when he offered the part to Denzel, he says, you know, I really want you for this part. You're the only person to do Malcolm X. And Denzel's, I'm going to need some time because I'm going to pull everything I can from the spirit of this character, Malcolm X. If he was Muslim, I'm going to live as a Muslim. I'm going to eat as a Muslim. I'm not going to have pork if I'm not supposed to have pork. I'm going to celebrate the rituals. And he did this for months and going to filming. And then Spike Lee talks about during one of the speeches that ends up in the movie that he's watching Denzel, who's, you know, now in Spike Lee's mind is Malcolm X. He's given this speech. He's given a civil rights speech, and he went on for about 10 minutes. And Spike went up to Denzel afterwards and was like, I didn't write any. Like, what was that, and and where was that from? Like that was amazing. And he said, Spike. He said, and to give Denzel's answer, it says Spike said that spirit entered you, didn't it? Like, and the director, Spike Lee was just watching and said he got so much into it that there was some other, the spirit of Malcolm X got into him, and that scene remained, and that just blew my mind. The
Wow.
role of art and kind of like transformation. Anyways, if you ever get a chance to see that, it blew me away because it was almost so good. It was scary. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I definitely have to check that out. That's really cool.
So what's going on now? I think on the outside, you both have done a web series. You're involved in community art and in various projects. What's it like now for you as artists? In a pandemic, what's going on with what you try to do for each one of you creatively right now?
I think for one, the pandemic, having the shelter in place, has kind of provided an ability for, I think a lot of people have been looking internally more and then taking the time to kind of do the things that they want to do. Like, for me personally, I've kind of really examined, myself as an artist, and have been like, okay, I'm staying at home all day, so like let's use this time to really delve into my art and take it further and find my my weaknesses and really work on those. And so I think, the pandemic, for how terrible it's been, has also provided a really nice means for people to focus on themselves and their passions. And then beyond that, I mean, I think the industry has done a really good job of providing opportunities for people through like monologue competitions. There's some like free film festivals going on. And so Paige and I, we've been, making little films together, helping each other with our self-tapes. And, personally, I felt like I've done so much more acting and art than I've done usually in this amount of time. And so again, for how negative a pandemic is, I feel thankful I've had the opportunity to be able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously everything, all production, has been halted. But I agree with what Nicole has said. It's been an interesting experience to have that time. And, normally throughout the year, you get an audition a day or two in advance, and it's kind of this like rush. And then both of us are continuing in scene study classes, which is great. But sometimes you kind of lose focus of, because living in LA, the film industry is such a business. Sometimes it's easy to lose focus of the art of it a little bit. So I think this time has been, like Nicole said, I think everybody over the world is kind of taking a step back and thinking and examining and just sitting with yourself a little bit more, and just kind of figuring out how you want to lead your life a little more. As tragic as the rest of the consequences have been. Sorry, what were you?
Well, yeah, and I know because I've talked to, and then I think the impact has been strong upon artists. I've talked to artists who, have kind of feel they need to rebuff the pressure to create, right? So, like for me, I would say for myself as a creator. And, my job, my main job, I work for a labor union and I'm doing everything remotely. Being at home with less running around everywhere into, just late hours, bargaining contracts and stuff. It's given me the opportunity to be at home and to create things. But it's also, I know when I've talked to creators being like, okay, I know I'm supposed to create something now, but I don't feel like fucking creating anything because, you know.
100%. I mean,
yeah.
like, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
In LA, the first time we were in quarantine, it was only for 2 weeks originally. And yeah, the first 2 weeks I, cleaned the house, I deep cleaned everything. I really avoided doing any sort of art. Because I'm so sorry, my dogs are like freaking out.
No, the last episode we had cat. The podcast is a pet friendly podcast, so don't worry.
Okay. Where was I? Oh yes, but I was totally doing all of that because I knew it was like I have this time. I should finish that script I started in August, and I was like, nope, I'm gonna clean my kitchen instead. Nope, I'm gonna do this instead. So I totally also think it's, and then eventually after the 2 weeks, and it was extended, then I kind of let myself breathe a little bit and look at the script when I was able to, and I was able to finish that script, which was very great for me. But I do, but yeah, I totally think there was that pressure to create because you have the time, and it was very debilitating for me at first. Yeah. But I think the biggest thing has even been less for me in terms of art during the pandemic has even been less the like output, because I finished that one script that I started in August and haven't finished a million other scripts I could have been finishing during this time, But so I think the biggest thing for me has been able to like the direction I want to go and things I want to focus on within art. And so even if I'm haven't had the capacity to do that in this time, because these past few months have been very hard on the world's psyche. And I think we do need to give ourselves a break and just honor that a bit.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know that the pressure that it's created for folks can be one thing, and I also know part of the thing about the podcast is asking fundamental questions, right? And I think some of those can be a little bit disruptive of being like, why are we doing this? And I think those become more pronounced when there are these larger events that disrupt our understanding of what the world's like, and our senses of security and things like that.
Yeah.
For both of you, on this point, can you tell me, why it is that you seek that you do create as artists, like as a fundamental question? I see like the work that you had done on Dead Friends. I'm, during the quarantine had the ability to watch the whole show, and for everybody listening, let me ask you both. I think it's a little bit over an hour for the total content of Dead Friends. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's like 67 minutes, I think.
Yeah. And so I was able to do that. And for me, in enjoying your art, it was very entertaining. It was funny. It helped me to watch it. And so that's great. But on your side, creating things right now, do you, maybe we'll start with you, Nicole. You ever a question of like, why do I create? Why do I act? Why am I trying to do this, from the get-go? What am I trying to accomplish?
Yeah, for sure. Especially because, when I started acting, when I decided to move down, I don't think I fully understood really why acting called to me. And then as I was able to explore it more, and especially with Dead Friends becoming a creator in all of it, I was amazed by how much I really loved just storytelling in itself and what it can do. And, and as I'm delving deeper, I realize that there's such power in storytelling. And, it can range all the way from being just a fun comedic piece to make people happy, all the way to, delving into really important themes such as death, the afterlife, or, even going beyond our piece. And again, back to that representation and exploring the injustices of the world and shedding light on challenges and problems that we as a humanity need to overcome. So I think I create in summation. No, I mean, I create because I believe in the power of storytelling. And again, whether it's from a one simple point you're trying to get across, all the way to being open-ended and just being like, what does this mean to you? Let me share what this means to me. What does it mean to you? I think that creation is such a beautiful avenue for people to explore beyond where they would normally be or the thoughts that they normally have, seeing into other people's perspectives and lives, and then answering, like, opening questions within themselves that maybe they wouldn't normally think about.
Yeah, thank you. And Paige, on the same question about why you create, what compels you, what you're trying to do.
Yeah, that's a very good question. I feel like I mean, this is going to sound so basic, and I feel like people say this all the time, but I create because I can't not create. I like am somebody who needs to, as much as sometimes I am, I can sometimes be closed off, but I within myself, I need to explore my humanity and understand the world. It is a way for me to understand the world too. Like, questions that I have are sometimes things I start writing about, or specifically with acting, if you have a character that you just really don't understand, but to be able to play that character, you do need to understand. Like, you don't need to, maybe agree with that character, but you need to understand them and you need to love them still, which is what our acting coach, Kimberly Jensen, always says, like, playing the love, finding that love, even in the character who seems like they're a terrible person.
Sure.
So I think, yeah, for me, it's the best way I've found to interact with the world, to question the world, to try to understand the world, and in doing so, hopefully help other people understand. And that's more at, like, kind of the spiritual level of it, because I do think everything we've talked about with, art holding up a mirror to society and having a sort of responsibility when you do create, to do it responsibly and acknowledging the world and what's happening. Yeah, I don't remember what I said. Did that make sense?
It did make it.
I thought at the end of mine too. I was like, did that come full circle?
Well,
where am I?
No, it's the question of why you create. I mean, it's I always try to, like, place the question, like, properly, because, like, how you ask is kind of weird, because, like, in fundamentally, I think it's a question behind anybody who's creating anything, right? So it's like,
Right.
What are we doing with our time? Why are you creating this? Like, what's the intent? And sometimes it's a little bit, startling of a question, but just kind of like the psychology, behind, because you make the effort, and some people will simply say, look, I'm compelled. I don't know how to do anything else. Like, it's breathing and doing this for me, so I can't do anything else for you. So that's where it is, where others might have a gift or a talent in a particular area, but be like, well, that they can't connect to it and then feel compelled. Okay, so there's a couple more questions, and one of the big questions I like to ask on the show, and Paige, I'm gonna ask you here first, is what is art? What do you believe art to be?
Yeah, I think that art is the expression of being human. I think it's at the core of what being human is. It's the moments where we let our humanity take over and are just expressing and experiencing that, whether that's a film, whether that's a dance, whether that's a conversation, whether that's an athlete. I think it's those moments where we're most in tune. And as much as we've talked about, like, I don't think art is ahistorical or atemporal. Like, it's always created somewhere and says something, either actively saying something about what's happening in the world, or is informed by what's happening in the world and therefore says something. But I think art is when we let everything that's going on hit us, and then we take away all of the societal expectations and norms and restrictions, and what comes out of that is art, like how we express out of that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it sure does. Nicole, what is art?
Yeah, and again, beautifully said, Paige. Definitely agree there.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it's the exploration of humanity, definitely. And I think it provides a really beautiful way for us to all connect and communicate with each other. And I think art is exclusive to humans. Excuse me if I'm wrong here, but from what I know is that, humans are the only beings that we currently know of express themselves through an art form. And I think that means something. There's this really lovely intertwining of cognition and, whatever you believe your soul to be and your creativity and all this just mixed into one. And it's just so unique. The unique expression of humanity.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It's a fun question. It's a fun question for me, and I think it's one that, I think my experience is that everybody kind of argues over it and they don't realize that they're arguing over it. So if you think about music, right? Like, you're talking with somebody who likes a band, and not only are they going to say that they like a band, that's the best band that they've ever heard, right? And they try to discuss that with somebody who doesn't like the band. It's basically a lot of times saying, like, this is an art piece that is worthy. That's like the best musical art piece I've heard in modern music. And the other person's like, it sucks, And then it's kind of how it works. So I always like the question to kind of try to get a little bit of a backdrop of how we're thinking about the things we create. Prior to getting it, prior to getting into expressing to the listeners how they can connect with more of your material, and I didn't mean to cut you off there. The big question for the podcast as well is, why is there something rather than nothing? And that's the question. And any takers, any first victims on the question, or?
Can I just quickly backtrack and say I just looked up whether humans are the only ones to do art.
Yeah, do it.
It's other animals as well. So I'm a liar.
Boo.
I knew I was.
Well, let's talk about our anecdotal knowledge of. I know there's an elephant. I know isn't there the elephant or the gorilla that paint?
Yeah, there's primates. It looks like dolphins, elephants. Okay, so I'm just a jerk.
No,
didn't give them the
only humans make art.
I'm not gonna. No accusations of being speciesist. We're learning. We're learning about.
Well, their art is their expression of being an elephant. So it's like for us, it's our expression of humanity. It's for them, it's their expression of being an elephant. So it still holds up.
Thanks, Paige.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I was thinking, and I'm glad you brought up the animals, because it just tells you when you brought that up, I was thinking, okay, I've been listening to too much Kurt Vonnegut science fiction lately, but I was thinking, okay, is it like aliens? All right, is there some other aliens discussion we can get into?
Totally. But I was like, that's what I said that we know of.
Exactly. Okay, so why is there something rather than nothing?
This is a cool question.
Well, I don't really have an answer. My only answer is that this is, honestly, I remember the first time I had an existential crisis. I was like 7, and I was in the Kitsap County pool under the slide, and there was water coming down for me. And I had just read an Archie comic where Archie was like in a video game instead of in his real life. And that just really hit home for me. And I was like, why am I who I am? Why am I here? Why am I not in a video game? Am I in a video game? And I know this is not exactly the question that you're asking, but
it kind of is.
Yeah. Yeah, I just had that. And so I don't really have an answer for that question of why is there something rather than nothing. All I know is that there is something instead of nothing, or at least our experience is that there's something rather than nothing. So we should honor that and make the most of it and make more somethings, make art, and engage with the something, because it's, it is a gift. But I have no idea why there's something rather than nothing.
I think your answer was, there was absolutely an answer there. And the question itself is super uncomfortable every time that I ask it. But the background of the question in general is always about, creating things, and I think some folks think about like, creation of the universe, or are there, somethings, or as an artist, am I creating something, out of nothing in what I create? So it's like, it's the question. So it's not an easy one to handle.
Good question.
Yes.
May I say something on it as well?
Absolutely. Please.
Yeah, I just, what comes to mind here, which may sound way more simple than is justified for this question, but what I've always thought about, and not to get too dark here, but when I've kind of had conversations with friends a couple of friends in college who had some difficulties and, didn't know why to really exist. And I think what always came to mind for me was, why not? Might as well. We're here. Let's do something about it, kind of a thing. We have an opportunity, so let's take advantage of it. Whatever that means, taking advantage of it, whatever it means, rather than accepting nothing.
Yeah, I've had this, and I appreciate that answer as well, because it actually gets right into it, because I mentioned when I've talked about this question before, there is a dark element, like in the sense of, if within Plato is like, he had said that philosophy was just a contemplation of death, right? So like, all right, so we have a limited amount of time on the earth. What are we doing with our time? Like, why are we creating? What is it that we're creating, and things of that nature? And it's like that, that fundamental. And I think that's when sometimes on the podcast we get into more of psychology, or even sometimes the psychology of the creator, because it's, grappling with that question, which is a profound and difficult one.
Yeah. So
at the end of the show here, I wanted each one of you, Paige and Nicole, to kind of, we talked a lot about dead friends and twin parts that I mentioned coming out from Megan McGroarty as a Twin Peaks short. Could you each tell us about just where to come in contact with you as as actresses, as creators, Dead Friends, things that I might not know about that you can share with the listeners?
Yeah. So you can find Dead Friends at deadfriendswebseries.com. You can also find it on YouTube if you just type in Dead Friends Web Series. We have an Instagram at deadfriends_web series, Facebook, Twitter, and for me personally, my Instagram is Lil_Ginga. So LIL_GINGA.
Can I try to say that? Lil Ginger, right? Lil Ginger?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right.
Paige is smart and has a website though.
I do. It's pretty rough right now. But yeah, you can connect with me on my website, heyitspage.com. Pretty easy to remember. My Instagram's at Paige, Paige, Ella. Oh God, I messed it up. My Instagram's at Paige Ella H, which is PAIGELLAH. That website has a contact form. Yeah.
That's great, and again on YouTube for Dead Friends. For both of you, I mean, is just as far as final question, like looking into the future. I know a lot of things feel uncertain. Just out of curiosity, is it a new project? What's going on with Dead Friends? Is that something that is picked up in other venues? Like, what's ahead for both of you?
Yeah. So, Dead Friends wise, we've been submitting to festivals, and we are in kind of we have season 2 written, which has been great. But we obviously can't really quite do anything right now with that. So we've just kind of been on the back burner for pre-production for that. And then personally, continuing acting as well. Nicole and I have our little production company, Svelte Dog Productions, where we do Dead Friends, and we both have written other scripts that we're hoping to develop as well. But then we're both also actors in other people's work all the time, as you mentioned with Megan's piece. So yeah, not as much right now, but generally continually auditioning. I have a couple of films lined up that we're supposed to film during, April, June, which obviously have been postponed, but yeah, so just all of that. I love acting and I love creating, and I'm excited to see where our production company goes, because that has become a fundamental part of my life as well, is not only acting in other people's works, which I do love. I love getting a script that I, didn't write and trying to understand this character that's brand new to me is really fun. But I also really love writing and creating and seeing this creation that just came from our minds come to life. So more of that in the future.
Yeah, and I wanted to thank you both. The show's a lot of fun. I had mentioning that to you. You're both very talented, and I enjoy the work that you put together, and really wish you a lot of good luck in the future. I hope to see you both in acting roles, but also whether you're collaborating or writing. It's a lot of pleasure, and it's great entertainment as far as you reach in me in the work that you do. But I wanted to thank you both, Paige Henderson and Nicole Murray, for joining the podcast, and hope to hear a lot more from both of you in the future.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thanks for having us. This is so great.
Thank you.
You are listening to Something Rather Than Nothing.